Hi everyone, welcome back to Nasidyanka, the channel where I talk about Bulgarian history, culture, and faith. This is episode 12, subcategory F. In episode 12, I dedicated this to modernism and I began introducing you to a few concepts and questions about what is modernism, what is progressivism, what is the Saint Vlad Seminary, what's the Parisian Institute, what is the most accurate calendar in the world, does the calendar matter, and why was there a calendar reformation in the Orthodox Christian Church? As mentioned before, I am not a professional video editor. My videos are quite simple. I am, however, Bulgarian, so I have access to the Bulgarian Orthodox Christian websites as well as historical sites, which have not been translated by far in the English language. And I have received a blessing, actually, a couple of times already, by a priest monk, Father Vissarion, from the year 2016. And he's an author of many other books I will share in the future. And so this was with the pure idea to spread this information, make it available to the Western people so that people can make their own clear and informed decisions on what church they're joining, why, what tradition they're following, what are they doing. There is a lot of deception nowadays, and so this is purely coming from a source of a hope to bring you guys the factual information, and you can make your own informed choices and decisions on what and who you're joining, if you're joining, or if you're not, who you're not joining. Okay, so here I'm going to talk about the church calendar. I almost feel like there should be sparks and fire because this has been a very difficult topic of conversation in church history, especially in the Orthodox world, but it does involve the Christians around and people outside who are looking for the truth. So once I was actually confronted by an Orthodox Christian priest who had just finished asking me about what questions I wanted to discuss in a study group. So, honest and truthful as I strive to be, I plainly told him what was on my mind at that time, since I had just been introduced to Bulgarian monks into the issue of ecumenism and the calendar matter. The priest became sullen and snapped a taboo response, which made my questioning not only impossible, but shameful and blamed. He said, "I will not discuss this issue, neither in group setting nor in person with you." So he cut me short. In that moment, I realized very clearly within my heart and conscience that there was something very irregular and manipulative that needed to come up to this surface. I stopped partaking of Holy Communion for a month, which was the amount of time that I needed until I was able to find another priest who would openly and honestly and truthfully discuss truth and facts with me. This left such a great impression on me that 10 years later I am opening up and speaking to the public. Use your critical thinking. Pray to God to give you clarity of thinking. If you are a believer, do not blindly follow and believe the masses. Faith is not blind, you guys. At least true Orthodox Christian faith, for that matter, is not for the blind. I wanted to spread this info to you guys and invite you and encourage you, if you have questions, to ask your questions. If you want to know the truth, ask, learn, explore. Anybody who gives you a taboo and tells you not to, that you should not, there is something crooked there. I have noticed that in modern Christian settings, people tend to put faith over fear, but we're clearly also instructed by the Bible to be wise as the serpents and meek as doves. That priest told me that I was never going to be happy living my life in that manner, seeking the truth and going into those groups that were discussing, the facts that I was curious about. Another priest actually told me that curiosity killed the cat. Nowadays, I know that this is called manipulation, gaslighting, and as a matter of fact, dismissiveness. So, but I can tell you, dear my people, happiness is a choice. You may choose to feel superficially happy, pretending to be happy, and go on in life, pretending, living in a lie, or you may choose the truth, capital T. Take up its consequences, because the truth does come with opposition. It is uncomfortable and inconvenient to many, and yet feel clear in the privacy of your conscience. The choice is yours. So an article was published on December 13th, 2013 in the Bulgarian website that I am citing in the comments section of under my video for this episode 12. This is on the church calendar, the old and the new style. Once again, I read and translated this article so I could share it with you guys in the English language, plain and simple. So that article begins with a quote from Matthew 7:20, which says, "Therefore, by their fruits you shall know them." Archbishop and canonized Saint Seraphim Sobolev, Sofia miracle worker, 1950 is when he passed away, stated that the new style is a product of Roman Catholicism and an anti-church phenomenon can bring nothing but turmoil to the Orthodox Church, end of quote. I will speak about Saint Seraphim Sobolev in the future. He's an amazing, marvelous saint recognized in Bulgaria, but so far I have not met a single Westerner who has heard of him. He's crucial in the field that discusses the calendar matter and the heresy of ecumenism. How important it is for one to be able to distinguish good from evil. And especially in our rapidly changing modern times, we should more often remember the warning of the prophet Isaiah, quote, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, and consider darkness light and light darkness, and bittersweet and the sweet bitter." This is also quoted from the Bible, and I'm including the comments underneath. In this part of episode 12, I will so relate to you what the Bulgarian Church openly discusses with its laity people, for this shall not be hidden from the public. And I actually respect the Bulgarian Orthodox Church for this, because this information I'm sharing with you guys is available on multiple websites and books and bookstores in churches and monasteries in Bulgaria. So we will briefly try to consider some important issues regarding the calendar division and describe the spiritual fruits of the introduction of the new style in some local Orthodox churches, including the Bulgarian one. As many of you probably have heard, the Bulgarian Church has accepted the new style of the calendar. And what's cool about Bulgarian Church is actually the church still issues a calendar that contains an introduction that tells us how wrong the new calendar is, and it's encouraging the laity to vote so that we can go back to our original old calendar. The church is also, once again, broadly, openly, without censorship, speaking about the reasons why this reform took place and how this is harmful. I respect the Bulgarian Orthodox Church for this endeavor, because this is what we would call spiritual warfare from the inside. Standing, holding on to the truth, stating the true facts while being bullied. We don't want to be bullied, of course, but that's what happens. There is opposition, and you all can draw your conclusions. I'm just going to continue through with this article. It is pointless to deny that the new style eventually led to numerous splits, bitter disputes, and even bloodshed, and dozens of schisms that continue to exist to nowadays. After all this, many stubbornly dismissing and minimizing the problem claim that the calendar division is a minor issue or an untimely matter. In fact, of all of this, as a matter of fact, like all of this, we are supposed to cowardly. Are we supposed to cowardly remain silent? Is that what we're supposed to do when the disease of deception, minimization, manipulation, gaslighting, and fogging continues to exist and its treatment is again and again postponed to some indefinite future? The good news is, thank God, that there are still believing Christians who sincerely desire to follow the truth and who do not easily succumb to the deception of modernist so-called theology. That's one of the examples of how one word can be so deceptive. People think that they're talking about theology when they already have been deceived, and this is not theology that's been presented. Why? We'll see as we move forward with this article. A little side note here, the problem with modernist theology is that it differs from classical original theology. As such, it cannot be called theology, you guys. If anything, it should bear a different, more appropriate name so as to not deceive the laity or innocent or the ignorant people that have nothing to do with this. And I'm gearing this to our leaders, most of all. Here we will consider the following questions. Is the statement correct that, quote, the church does not celebrate dates but events, end of quote, and therefore the calendar division does not matter much? Is it normal that Orthodox Christians from different countries celebrate the Nativity of Christ and other major fixed holidays separated in time? And in practice, it happens that some Orthodox celebrate on the same date with Roman Catholics and Protestants, and not with their own Orthodox brothers and sisters, their own tradition and religion. Why does the new style sometimes cause the disappearance of the fasting period preceding the feast of the Holy Apostles Peter and Paul? Isn't this an inappropriate mockery of their memory? And are these signs from God? And are there any signs of God to show which calendar is correct and which is not? Let's talk a little bit about a brief history of a spiritual betrayal. In May 1923, the so-called All-Orthodox Congress took place in Istanbul under the presidency of the infamous Freemason patriarch Meletius IV Metaxakis, who from the year of 1909 became a member of the Constantinople Masonic Lodge Harmony, and in the 1930s of the Alexandrian Lodge Alexander the Great. Therefore, the following issues were considered: calendar reform, remarriage of priests, shortening of fasts, marriage of bishops, shortening of divine services, with the possibility of eliminating movable feasts and even the weekly sequence of days, expansion of ecumenical ties, which means serving with non-believers, other believers, and thus breaking Orthodox Christian tradition and dogmas, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. The goal of this calendar reform was formulated as follows. The introduction, I'm quoting here, the introduction of the new pan-Orthodox calendar is the first stone necessary for the realization of the unification of all the churches of God. The problem with this is that we, Orthodox Christians, know that Christ founded one church, over which even the gates of hell shall not prevail. And therefore, the logical question arises: who then are the other churches of God whose unification is spoken of? It's unheard of, it's unorthodox. Thus, it becomes abundantly clear that in fact, churches of God are called the heretical congregations that have long since fallen away from the Church of Christ, the original factual Church of Christ that I'm talking about. Even just from a glance, we can clearly imagine the anti-Orthodox and non-church spirit that reigned among the participants of this Congress. Subsequently, almost all of these anti-canonical and even absurd decisions were completely rejected, but nevertheless, the new style was officially introduced on March the 10th, 1924, at the cost of many schisms. It was introduced first in the Patriarchate of Constantinople and then in the Greek Archdiocese. This happened despite the openly stated disagreement of three apostolic sees, the Patriarchates of Antioch, of Alexandria and Jerusalem, and the Church of Cyprus. The most numerous Orthodox Church, the Russian Church, also and appropriately refused to obey the non-canonical decision because, again, it didn't go hand in hand with church tradition, Orthodox church tradition. In the year of 1924, the Russian Patriarch Tikhon, officially canonized as a saint, informed the Constantinople Patriarch Gregory VII, the successor of the ill-fated Meletius, that although he received from him the certificate or the go for the introduction of the new style, introducing the style in the Orthodox Church was impossible due to the determined resistance of the people. The Holy Patriarch Tikhon stated clearly that, quote, in order to preserve the universal unity, it is important that in all Orthodox churches the same prayers be offered at the same time and the same holidays are celebrated. Moreover, the Julian calendar, which is adopted in all autocephalous Orthodox churches, is sanctified by the authority of the ecumenical councils and cannot be changed by an authority lower than an ecumenical council. End of quote. Saint Tikhon. Mount Athos and its monks also continued to serve in the old calendar style, not wanting to accept a harmful, non-canonical, and unnecessary innovation that would rupture the liturgical unity of the Orthodox Church. In the Roman Catholic Church, the new style was introduced on October the 1st, 1924, and in return it received from Constantinople the status of a patriarchate, although it had never been one in its history. Its head at the time, Metropolitan Myron Christia, was a Freemason and a former Uniate, who in the year of 1926 and 1929 even changed the dates of the celebration of Pascha in order to bring them into agreement with the Roman Catholic Easter. Then again, in the year of 1936, he recognized the reality of the Anglican ordinations. So for those who are not Orthodox, this is mixing two different religions together inappropriately, deceiving people into what Orthodoxy is not. They clearly are not of Orthodox Christian origins. So what I'm trying to say is Anglicans are clearly not Orthodox Christians. To mix different spiritual traditions is offensive and deceptive, especially when you refer to the mix by a deceiving name that does not fit the description. The new calendar led not only to a split among believers in Romania, but also to bloody persecutions against dissenters. There were even a few murders. In the Bulgarian church, the new style was introduced in the year of 1968. Two figures, I've mentioned them before, Serafim Alexiev and Saint Serafim Sobolev, were instrumental in slowing down this process as much as possible, as they spoke exponentially about the harm of this change. And I've mentioned time and again, I will speak in depth about them, and I intend, God willing, to actually translate their books and share them with you guys, because they're not published in the West. The motifs that are highlighted in the message of the Bulgarian Orthodox Church since that year, 1968, are not only theologically unsound, but one of them has an openly heretical character. Quoting, it says, the adoption of this, i.e. the new calendar, corresponds to the ecumenical aspirations of the Holy Church, end of quote. Thank God the church still reveals in Bulgaria where its wrongdoings are, so we have access to this information on the main websites. This is an absurd statement directed against the purity of the Orthodox faith and church, for which many holy martyrs and confessors have suffered even to death. And so, ecumenism is nothing but a huge heresy and a blasphemy against the Orthodox Holy Catholic, which means one, and Apostolic Church, which stands for pillar and support of the truth. The God glorified in Saint Archbishop Seraphim Sobolev says that the ecumenical heresy of heresies, his quote, heresy of heresies, is the last heresy before the coming of the Antichrist, and it will firmly try to ensnare all of the local Orthodox churches in its nets. Little note here, more on Saint Seraphim Sobolev and his spiritual father Seraphim Alexiev in the future episodes. Like I said, they will include their personal books, and they're popular in Bulgaria. I should just remind you guys that this is also what Father Dimitri Vissarion spoke about in the year of 2016, and he is a priest monk who gave me his blessing, and he gave me 2 piles of books personally written and published, and he gave me a blessing with this instruction to bring those books here. I actually delivered appropriately, following his instructions, one of those piles to the local OCA, and to this date, it's probably been a little less than a decade. I have not heard back. I am pretty sure that they have dismissed the books or hidden them somewhere. But I continue on. God sees everything, and my hope is to just make facts known to the public. So continuing with our article here. So far, we have briefly seen the false spiritual foundations on which the new calendar rests, as well as the bitter fruits that it has produced. So now, let's explore in further detail some modern attempts to defend the new style. As far as the church modernists who continue to spread false information about the Orthodox Christian Church, in line with the article that I'm sharing with you here, I invite them to explain, not to the public, but to the privacy of their own conscience. What is more reasonable, to defend a spiritual error to the end or to correct it as soon as possible? 2. Is it true, as claimed by a famous Bulgarian Metropolitan Nathanael of Nevrokop, that the church does not celebrate dates but events, and therefore the calendar division is not of great importance? Let's see what response we can get from church history and the ecumenical councils. And I'm going to actually pause you guys here. Stay tuned. I will soon share the following in the following video, which I have called subtitles G. So this is episode 12G, where I will speak about what our church history and the ecumenical councils have actually said about the calendar reform. If you guys are interested in receiving more of this kind of information, please subscribe to my channel, Nasidyanka. If you're not interested, I respect you nonetheless. Of course, everybody has a head on their shoulder. You can make your own personal decisions. This is just free information. I'm sharing it. I'm not gaining anything personally. As a matter of fact, I have a full-time job, and it's pretty tough on me to be making videos. But I believe in the truth. I believe in people having a free choice. This is in my bones of bones, in my bone marrow, in my DNA, so to speak, in my, cells. It runs in my spirit. I really want people to have the correct information, access to information, and with that avoid any kind of discrepancies and deceptions. So when people say I choose this, they know why they are in it, and when they say I reject that, they know why they're rejecting what they're rejecting. Thank you very much for your time. I will let you go with this. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and join me again at Nasedyanka with our follow-up episode 12G. Thank you and bye-bye.